There we go. All right. Well, welcome to Dessert in a Movie. We're so delighted to have all of you here. My name is Kathleen Morgan. I'm with the library, and our featured movie today is Swell, and it's all about surfing. So we're really excited to get going because I know you have a million questions, because I do. But first, does anybody have a dessert that they want to share? Corolla, did you make your dessert? Oh, you're muted.
A dessert is wine.
Yeah, that seems to be a theme tonight.
Heather's too.
Came from a box.
Yes, we're all drinking our dessert tonight. Okay. Oh, Mary, you got dessert?
The box.
Well, Hawaii, so I did pineapple for one of the places.
Smart.
Pineapple upside down cake. Upside down.
Upside down sounds good.
Because that's how you end up when you surf. Hawaii,
Yes,
upside
wave
down.
just kicked you.
That's great. All right. Anybody else have a dessert? Nope.
There's a lot of drinking going on, Kathleen. Look
You know,
at pause here.
This is what happens. Kathy's not around, so we're all drinking, right? Is that what's going on? She's going to be back though next month, FYI. So
good.
Yeah. So I want to introduce our guests, and actually we really have two special guests because Heather is a special guest tonight as well. But Peter Liquori lives in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, a small New England city with a vibrant maritime industry. He spends his time surfing, fishing, diving, and cooking. Peter works for his family's clothing company, Goodwear, as its creative director. So welcome, Peter. We're excited to have you here.
Thanks so much.
Many of you know Heather Kearns, who is the library's marketing coordinator. However, you may not know that Heather is also Peter's mother. And she is here to ask him really hard questions. Like, what are you thinking? And do you really want to ride 100-foot waves? So I can hardly wait for Heather's questions. I've been scheming for the last couple of weeks.
My son lives in New Hampshire, and other than having in Portsmouth, and not only does it have a fabulous maritime history, but it's it's turning into a very important artists and music place as well.
Yes, it
And
is.
it's overcome by tourists.
Yes.
lately.
Is it possible that your son and Peter might know each other?
I don't know if you know crazy artists. My son is a dentist who opened up a gallery next to him, and he's adorable, and his name is Eric Katzman.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Small town. I run
We
into him.
told him about you, or David, my husband, sent him something about Liquori.
Whoa.
So now you can have a dentist. Look him up.
And
Dentist from
he's,
Kansas.
by the way, Portsmouth has some of the best beer I've ever had. Smutty Nose, and I don't know what all. It's great. What are you drinking, Peter?
This is a beer from Portland, Maine, which is also a great beer town.
Right. What is
And
it called?
good.
What
What's
is it
that?
What's it
called?
called?
Bissell Brothers. I forget what the name of the beer itself is called.
All right. Well, you all kind of know the drill because I think every one of you have been to one of these things. But if you have a question, you're welcome to put it in the chat, and Heather and I will monitor those. Or you're welcome. I mean, this is a small enough group. You're welcome to unmute and just chime in, maybe raise your hand so that we're not talking over each other. But I have just a few basic questions to kind of get us going. And then seriously, feel free to ask any questions you have, because I know this is, I mean, I know nothing about surfing, and it was really fun and interesting to learn about big wave surfing, because it sounds like, if I'm right, there's a big difference. There's like regular surfing, and then there's big wave surfing, which,
Yeah.
if the Google is correct, really didn't start until like the 90s, because
That's true.
yeah. And I don't know if you want to comment on the kind of that sport and the difference between the two. I'd love to kind of hear your perspective on it.
It is incredible, no doubt about it. And particularly not the size, but like the wave in Hawaii, Jaws, that they keep going to, that is just such a big, perfect wave that it's amazing that the sport has gotten to the point where people can actually ride it and ride it well. And we're really just watching them kind of learn how to do it in real time.
Mhm.
So in another 20 years, I mean, it's certainly not at its ceiling yet, which is crazy.
Wow.
But for 99% of surfers, we're just like hoping for the next 3-foot day. It's not usually that big, and you're just kind of waiting for the next time you can go surfing. And most of us can't spend our lives like always being in the perfect place at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Uh,
So what drew you to surfing in the first place?
Truthfully, I was really into skateboarding, and I
There's
just
a link. There's a link.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
definite
Very
link.
similar.
hurt. And I always kind of wanted to try surfing. I grew up close to an ocean town with surfing, and so I was sick and tired of hurting myself and got into surfing because falling on water felt better, and I just totally fell for it immediately.
That's great. Well, is there anything you don't like about it?
No. Nothing.
That's the honest answer.
Yeah, even falling really isn't that bad either. It's just an excuse to be underwater and swim. It's great.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm not doing what those guys in that movie were doing though.
But yeah, Heather's happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Did you
Oh, when
notice
I was-
that they did some surfboard moves? A couple of the guys did a couple of flipping surfboard moves. Not surfboard.
Yeah, like the
Like snowboarding?
360s.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were doing some 360s in the.
Yeah, that guy. Oh my gosh.
That
what was
guy's in
his
a league
name?
of his own. Kai Lenny.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he's like he's one of a kind.
Now there seemed to be a lot of one of the kind characters in that movie. So I mean, so which one do you, if you were to be able to invite him to dinner, who would you choose?
I'm honestly, I'm kind of a big fan of Nathan Florence. He's pretty fascinating. His brother, he's one of 3 boys in the family, and they're all incredible surfers, but like the oldest brother is one of the best in the world, and he won like the world championships or whatever multiple times, and he's like the competitive genius. And then Nathan's like the younger brother.
So it's a John who's the hot
Yeah.
surfer. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And then
like his name.
Nathan kind of like just made a name for himself, and then he went like in another direction, and then he's like one of the best too.
Yeah.
And the younger brother is a really good skateboarder, and also it's just, they're crazy as a trio. It's insane that a family could produce like 3 iconic people that are all masters of what they do. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'd love to meet their parents.
I know. Single
Like-
mother, I believe.
Wow.
They just kind of grew up like poor young kids in Hawaii, and they really made a name for themselves. It's insane. They have such a good story.
Wow.
You know, that reminds me of something that you and I talked about when I was out. And there's 2 things. One that they did in the movie is there was a lot of looking at weather reports. And like when you were hanging out, you were like checking NOAA, and like, because we were going to go surf and I was going to watch you. And so the NOAA thing is really interesting. And then I remember you also said that, because I was asking you about accessibility and learning, and how, you know, there's the proximity to the ocean that you kind of have to have. But then you were like, you know, it's expensive. And then you're sort of, it's like, I played tennis in high school. There's always a court, even at night, almost always a free court. And you were saying something like you would have to duck out of school because you'd be watching NOAA. And you're like, sorry, but I gotta go because this is like my one chance to surf for who knows how long. I gotta split. And that you would have to have a career or a job that has that flexibility where you could find a way to work around all of these variables that are out of your control in order to do it. And then I thought about how you master it. You almost have to have like no commitments and no relationships. And how hard is it? I mean, I know that's a loaded question, but it was fascinating to me that there are so many things working against you. And then how do you get good when you have that much working against you?
Mhm.
The people, this is so it's so corny to say this, but it is a thing you'll hear. Like, people really do talk about surfing like an addiction, and that is true. Like, I couldn't tell you a bad thing about it. And there's a great quote from a guy, that guy Shane Dorian, who's in that movie.
Mhm.
He's quoted in an interview like years ago that it always stuck with me. He's like, man, I'm 50 years old. I'm 51 or 52 years old. I've been doing this since I was 7, and it's like still not enough. I'm
Wow.
still, it's like I've already done all the things I've like wanted to achieve, and I'm just like, oh, I just can't wait till tomorrow when I can go surfing again. So
Yeah.
a lot of people fall for it, myself included. Like, when you're younger and you just want to, you're like, oh, I could live on a beach and eat bugs and like,
Yeah.
just
Live in a
surf.
cardboard box.
Yeah, live in
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
some people do that, and those people, a lot of people don't end up becoming the ones that are in the movie. Like, people really throw their lives away for it, and it's
Yeah.
not exactly a bad
Well,
choice.
There's a bunch of questions about how these people actually make a living. I mean, do they have sponsors? Do they win prizes?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
can you really do that? I mean, I guess the good ones can.
99% of people can't.
Mhm.
And those guys in the movie, I mean, Hawaii is such a lottery ticket. I mean, for some reasons, not for every reason, but to grow up in Hawaii and fall in love with surfing, like you were on a quick path. And there's just the fact that you can surf every day, very incredible waves in the best place on earth is a one-way ticket to becoming successful if you want to be.
Yeah.
That's not to minimize any of the work that people have to do.
So where are some places that you have surfed, and like which was your favorite?
I have a soft spot for Costa Rica and Nicaragua as well. The people down there are incredible. It's so accessible from the US. Water's crazy warm. Wildlife is incredible. Waves are pretty fun. It's never that big, but
Do you
it's just
surf both
easy.
oceans?
Yeah, you can. And yeah, you can do that. You can surf on both sides on opposite sides of the year. So you can be in the Caribbean for the what would be for the winter, and then on the Pacific for the summer.
Wow.
Just beautiful all year long. It's like a 6-hour drive. It's crazy.
Well, and Jill has a question about, the Pacific Ocean. You can pretty much just jump in and swim during the summer, but like the surfing in the Northeast require a wetsuit. Because aren't you a cold water surfer? It's my recollection when Heather was out there, it was like February or March. You were
It was
surfing.
February, end of
Yeah.
February.
Surf all year. The water gets pretty cold.
Like, do you have a limit on how cold is cold?
32 is about as cold as it gets.
Yeah, that's true.
No,
Go ice skating and
seriously.
surfing all in one day.
Right. And
Yeah.
the challenge is to snowboard or ski and surf in the same day. That's like the New
Wow.
England. You try to do that, but
There's a goal.
the wetsuits are so good that you can surf through the winter and be pretty warm. It's still a labor, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, the equipment part was really interesting. Just how padded the suits are. And then I think it was the older Shane who invented the inflatable
Yeah,
suit.
which is wild.
Yeah,
And
is that common? I mean, is that like a common accessory now or not?
No,
I mean, it was,
I've never seen one in person. The
okay,
waves in New England really never get to be that big.
yeah,
When we get large surf, it's a welcome. Most people are out. Like
Yeah.
it's not like only a few crazy people are surfing. It's most people who are serious are out there.
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, but helmets have made a huge, everybody wears helmets now. It's crazy.
Oh,
I
that's
was gonna ask
interesting.
if that is like,
Yeah.
you know, because is it dorky to wear a suit that would help you not drown? And would people consider that like kind of weak? You know, because it's like there's, yeah.
I don't know. It happened quicker than the conversation did.
Oh,
Like everybody, they just kind of appeared one time. And
Hmm.
now a lot of people wear helmets.
yeah.
Well, it makes sense, really, if you think about it. Does that throw off your balance or anything? mean-
Yeah, I think it would.
Yeah,
I've definitely heard that it would.
yeah,
I personally couldn't really imagine wearing one.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we were, I think Sharon, you were asking this question when we were first getting on about the difference between the tow surfing and the paddle surfing and kind of what the conditions need to be for either of those. Can you speak to that?
Sure. A lot of times to be fast enough to ride the wave, you have to have a small enough board that is fast, but you can't physically move the board quick enough to get into the wave. So you need to get like pulled in by the jet ski,
Okay.
so that you like hit the ground running and get on the wave and then just kind of ride it out. As opposed to paddling a much bigger board, and standing up in the perfect moment at the perfect time on the wave. So neither one is, they both have their merits, especially
Yeah.
when the waves are that big.
Right.
I am like dying to tow into a wave.
There you go, Heather.
I used to wakeboard, and it's like that feeling of getting pulled up and pulled along behind.
Oh,
That is
God, I'm so
comfortable.
stupid. I thought it was toes, like your feet.
Oh,
You're standing on the board. I didn't
TOW.
think about the TOW.
That's great. Ah, well,
Yeah,
so-
Sharon, I did see drones in the film.
yeah, there
Quick-
were
quick
drones.
Yes, I saw a number of drones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kept seeing those little white things right
Yeah, yeah.
outside
Mhm.
where they
Yeah.
were. And that's an incredible way of doing the photography, because it used to be so hard to be able, to put yourself beside a huge
Yeah.
wave while they're going through the barrel. I mean, it's
And that one guy who was like only concerned about hanging onto his GoPro,
Yeah.
yeah.
so worried I was gonna drop it. And I was like, dude, you almost died. But he was like, bro. So
Well, and then that photographer who was actually on the back of the jet ski and
yeah.
in that crazy bunch of footage where the jet skis were flying over the back of the wave. I just thought there's a lot of danger for the jet ski drivers as well as the surfers, it seems.
Jill
So,
asked if
Totally.
surfing on the Northeast requires a wetsuit. I was just gonna say, Peter, at one point you told me that there's winter wetsuits and summer ones. And
Yeah.
right? What's the difference? Like, and what's the cost? And how fast
The winter wetsuit it's literally just a rubber suit. So the one in the winter is thicker than the one in the summer. Like about pretty much twice as thick.
mhm.
And there's all different ranges of the in betweens, but the winter one, it has a hood, so you're fully covered, and then gloves and boots.
Okay.
In the summer, the water in New England just doesn't get warm enough to really not have a wetsuit if you're going to be in the water for a long time, or like in the morning.
Mhm.
But you have to
Yeah,
wear-
it depends though, because I never knew that people surfed in the winter until
Yeah.
going to San Francisco, and my in-laws lived off near Cliff Rock, and I thought they were seals, but they weren't. They were people in winter,
Yeah.
winter wetsuits. They looked like black glistening seals.
And really,
So there
really,
was a day,
wetsuits are pretty recent too. Jack O'Neill invented like the modern wetsuit in the 70s.
Mm.
And they weren't really good until the 90s, which is just people didn't really surf in the cold water in the winter like we
Exactly.
do now till
Right.
really the late 90s.
Yeah,
Just-
and
it's-
body surfing. I remember being on my father's back as he'd ride waves in.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the same situation. So to
Yeah.
me, the Atlantic was mild because it was always in the summer, even
Yeah.
though it doesn't really get warm until September, when we would see everybody leaving. We knew then that the ocean would be great for body surfing.
Yeah. Well, Mary had a question about whether climate change is affecting surfing in terms of the sizes of the waves or any other aspect of it.
I would say I would say yes, but it remains to be seen how.
Mhm.
The thing there's oceans all over the place, right? So
Yeah.
I can only focus on so many at a time. So like the Atlantic, the Northern Atlantic is really all I care about because that's what influences my surf.
Mhm.
And so like we get good surf in this time of year, September, October, when the Caribbean is pretty warm. So because the Caribbean has increased temperature a little bit, there has been a trend up in like hurricane strength, hurricane generation. There's just more hurricanes, more storms. They usually last longer, which is a really good thing for surfing. But I think it was last year, Hurricane Dorian, or the year before, like really just, that was like weird behavior for a hurricane to hang out for that long and cause that much damage. And that was fully attributed to the fact that the water was significantly warmer for the time of year and not enough rain and to mitigate the power of the storm. So it's definitely causing something, and just things are getting screwy, and yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Because even in the movie, when is it the guy that runs Surfline was saying
Yeah.
how
He's
in
a
20
legend.
is he okay?
Yeah, that guy is unbelievable.
Yeah. And I mean, in that year, 2020, they didn't have the expectation that they were going to have waves like that. And all of a sudden they started, popping up. And then everybody had to figure out how to get on a plane during COVID to go chase the waves. So, that was the other challenge.
And as you like him just being like, I called the Hawaiian health guy and he was like, oh, you're just go.
I know. What kind of health person are you?
He
Just get on the
threw that
plane.
one
that
in
was
there.
weird. That was weird.
While the rest of us were like,
I know. You can't go, sorry, but you can't
He's
because
probably
you're a
thinking
professional
of like
surfer.
what they would lose commercially from people who were coming to see him surf.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the investment that was made would be apparently outweighed the health concerns.
So yeah, Scott has a question of how do they score the competitions?
I think the big wave is the same as the regular. Like there's like a NBA of surfing called the WSL, and they do a world tour, like 13 events, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it runs on like a normal bracket to a quarterfinal, semifinal, and that it's like a panel of judges, and they judge your wave on a scale of 0 to 10 based on like a set of criteria. But it's so subjective. It's like made to be controversial. It's always controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has an opinion. Everybody's always wrong. There's always like some thing about some guy didn't get the score that he totally deserved and it threw off the whole year. And it's like a little soapy, but
Yeah. Oh man.
yeah, I mean, the competitive side of surfing is pretty niche, but it's incredible. I mean, that's who pushes the sport and makes it so that we can all surf and buy surfboards. And
Right.
Uh,
Well,
yeah.
Shelley's asking, are the jet ski drivers part of a surfer's team? Or are they self-employed like taxis?
they are, I believe they are usually two surfers that switch off.
Okay.
So if you, yeah, you just have a buddy, or maybe you have a buddy in that town because you're traveling all the time to go to these crazy places, and you like know a guy with a jet ski. Yeah.
Is it considered cheating to be pulled out there and not go out there by yourself?
To go out on a ski.
Yeah, is it considered cheating?
It's like, it's controversial. There, first and foremost, surfing has a very dark spot of like machismo. It is just like, there's so much of like downplaying or trying to act macho, one or the other. And so like, there's like a huge thing about how paddling and not using a jet ski is so much more incredible than using a jet ski. But I mean, they're both essentially doing the same thing. There is a stigma against the jet skis, but I think that's only from certain people.
Well, in some of those waves, it's impossible to get out there without it, I mean,
If you go to like your local beach with a jet ski,
Yeah.
you are
you're
an idiot.
very uncool.
And I have seen that, and that's some head shaking. Definitely.
If
So
it's
how-
3-foot waves, it sounds kind of,
Yeah.
it's a little sad.
It's a little much.
A little flexing going on, right?
Be a
So
little
how big
weenie.
does the wave have to be acceptable on a jet ski getting towed? Probably pretty big.
20
Except
feet.
the
at least.
female said she
Okay.
was paddling for 15 minutes to get out to her big waves. She was not a weenie.
Oh,
When Kathleen, you and I, as you may remember, went to,
Nazareth.
Nazareth, but like in
Not to
84,
surf, by the
not
way.
to surf. We were confused. We were
Yeah.
lost. But it's a beautiful town. It was in the middle of the 80s and nobody was surfing. But as I understand it, towing is the only thing that really makes those waves accessible because you have to get further out than mortals can get to.
Yeah.
yeah. So Nazareth is like a regular beach,
Right.
with great surf, more than not. But then sometimes it gets that like what is in that movie. And that would just be, I mean, nobody even thought about that until like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because
And
it's like barely a wave. It's like
Mhm.
it's like a whole different realm. It's a lot like snowboarding. I mean, it's snowboarding with way higher consequences.
Yeah. Well,
It's like,
and it sounds
yeah.
like no wave is too big to ride, right? I mean,
with a jet ski, not really.
yeah. Which is just kind of mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
That's why the paddling becomes sort of cooler, so to speak, because it's like you're totally pushing the limit of what is possible to do just under your own human power. But it's like every sport, it's technique and materials and time, practice. So that's like there's always going to be another step up.
Right.
eventually.
Yeah. Another bar to, exceed. Amy has a question about female surfers. Are women still ignored by the male surfers or treated as lesser humans or anything like that?
So their claim to fame, the like the NBA of surfing, WSL, they are the first league to do equal pay across both, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they also have a pretty prominent they push the women's side of surfing pretty hard. And they're anecdotally, like in my experience, there's not that many female surfers where I am, but they are absolutely present.
Mhm.
But when I was in California, in San Diego, it's a good split. I mean, there's a ton of girls that surf and are very good and very well respected. And yeah, it's not in like your normal everyday spot. There's none of that machismo and jockeying or whatever. It's just kind of everybody out there, and it's a very healthy mix.
That's good.
It's
Yeah, I
great.
noticed, is it Keela? Kenny was talking about how,
Yeah.
I mean, she's been around a long time and how the men have become more welcoming to women surfers. And I mean,
Absolutely.
she sounds like she's just an incredible force. And
And she's from Hawaii too. She has so much, plus she's such a badass. Like,
yeah, I mean, I respect her. I do. She's amazing. So
yeah. And there's a couple girls from Hawaii that they hang in with the guys in the competitions and stuff too. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure the big wave, I think they talked about it, it's not a gendered competition.
oh, okay.
It's just like, if you want to do it, you can do it. And so there's a few girls in the mix too.
So
One of
where
the-
would go ahead. No,
Oh,
I was gonna say where
one of the-
no, go for it,
I feel
Heather.
like we're at an intersection and I'm like, no, you go. No, you go. No, you have the right of way.
Yeah, your turn. You go first.
Oh, it's more philosophical. One of the things I loved about this book, which is available at the library, it won the Pulitzer Prize. It's a book called Barbarian Days: A Surfing Life by William Finnegan. And it's described as, it's like reading Hemingway on bullfighting, William Burroughs on controlled substances, and Updike on adultery. It's a coming of age story seen through the gloss resin coat of a surfboard. And one of the things I love that it points out about surfing is that to people like not Peter, rest of us, or I'm assuming the rest of us, that it just looks like a sport. But it's described as, to initiates, it's something else, a beautiful addiction, a demanding course of study, a morally dangerous pastime, and a way of life. And I would love, Peter, for you to talk about what those things are to you. Why do you do it? I personally want to know. Deborah, I can't believe I hung out with you and I didn't ask you this question. But why do you do it? And how does it feel to be out there? Because it's a solo, I'm assuming it's a solo thing for the most part, even though you're sharing the water with tons of people and there's all of these, you know, what's the word, Kathleen, that we were talking about? Like yielding to each other and making sure you don't show each other
Yeah.
up. And
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a
not-
basic etiquette.
etiquette, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it's a primarily solo adventure, I assume. So why
Sure.
do it? And how do you feel when you're out there by yourself? Like, what does it do for you?
That's a big question. I don't know. That's a great question.
You can answer it later.
There's so many, like, there's so many levels to the sport, if you want to call it that. I don't really consider it a sport at all. First of all, it's like, it's 100% in a natural environment and at the whim of a natural environment. So you have absolutely no control over anything in terms of timing and location, or really what's gonna, I mean, it could be raining, the water could be dirty. It's like, there's hundreds of variables. So then there's the day of surf, and when you're out there and the surf kind of sucks, it's still fun because you can still kind of do the thing of being in the ocean, which is unbelievable. And then this thing happens where a wave comes in and you can actually like ride it like a little kid, and you feel like a little kid on a like playing on this thing, on this wave, this little, like you get on the slide and you go down the slide. It's that feeling. But you're a working adult and you get to like go just to the beach and do this thing, which is hilarious and it's amazing. And then sometimes the waves get really good. And that is, I mean, the waves are physical energy. I'm not going to get too far out here. But like when you are actually surfing and the waves are good, meaning there's a lot of power behind the waves, you really do feel that. Like that is a physical experience, whether it's falling or just swimming out or catching the wave and feeling like the speed and it just kind of, it comes out of nowhere. And then it's over and you get to like do it again. And for most of us, you're just dying for that day, which only happens every so often. And when the waves are really good, it's like, I mean, I'm like literally getting goosebumps. It is really like something incredible. And you don't get to the bottom and wait in line for the chairlift and go back up the chairlift and do it again. You don't get to just kick out of the bowl and wait in line with your skateboard and drop back in again. And you don't get to rent a golf cart or have a bunch of money to hire a caddy. Like you just go with your stuff and it's you and the ocean really. And that's why like every time you surf and it's kind of bigger, you get over the fear and then you get to surf and then you had the best time of your life and you're like, okay, next time it can be a little bit bigger and I know I can do that. And that's why these guys in that movie, like they just kept going up that ladder and like now they're at the top and they're completely addicted to that feeling of like, and I think that's why there's not a lot of injury and death seriously in that big wave surfing. Like to get to that point, they had to go up this crazy echelon of waves and they've already fallen 10,000 times. So it's like, they know exactly what to do. It's totally addicting. I went off the rails there, but
Well, so how badly does it hurt when you fall off? I guess it depends on how big the wave.
If you don't hit the bottom, it's not that bad.
No, that's good.
And you just
How close to death have you been?
Huh?
Said mom.
What was your
Like, I
question?
need to know.
Yeah, she wanted to know how close to death have you gotten as a surfer?
Oh gosh, no, not close.
There you go. Good answer.
Food poisoning was the closest I got to surf. Yeah, that was the worst. That was worse than any fall surfing. Was
Can
food
I ask a
poisoning.
question on, I grew up, it was a foreign thing to listen to the Beach Boys, you know? There was a whole, that's why I said surf bum. There was a whole thing on the West Coast of lifestyle, and it also got into the psychedelic and the Zen and spirituality on the West Coast, all of that kind of a lifestyle of surfing. Whereas then at that point, the East Coast was mostly good weather, unless you wanted to swim in urine down in Miami where the, you know,
Gosh.
it's so warm. But what is your feeling about East Coast, West Coast, or depictions of surf life now?
Yeah. That's actually one of the questions. Karen asked the same thing about, do you have any stereotypes you can confirm or dispel about surfers?
Not all surfers are beach bums, but to be a good surfer, you kind of have to be a beach bum.
Ah,
for the reasons mentioned before of just, you just got to be there when it's
Yeah.
good, and you
Yeah.
got to have a lifestyle based around that. And the easy lifestyle choice around that is like to be a bum. And I chose cooking. Like I really did. I always was a cook because I worked nights and I could surf in the morning when it was good. And I would never take a day off. And then when I knew the surf would be good, I would call out sick or I would ask for the day off or whatever. But I always surf during the day, which was really why I did that.
Yeah. I was kind of struck by the people in the movie, the professional surfers. I mean, really, they were really impressive people when you got down to it. You're kind of, expecting, is it Joe Spicoli? Is that the guy's name from
That's what I was
Fast
gonna ask
Times at
Kathleen,
Ridgemont
like,
High?
yeah, like why is it
Yeah.
when we think of surfers, we think of Jeff Spicoli? Like,
Exactly.
why is it reggae, pot smoking, no job?
And they weren't anything
That's
close
a lot
to
of
that.
it.
Maybe,
Those
yeah.
Those guys, when they're not on camera, that's a lot of it too. I think.
But
Well,
why
we-
is that? Why is that so much part of the culture? Like, what is surf culture? Like,
Well, I
what,
think it's like why I think it's sort of what I said before. It's like when the surf is really good or really big, it's a different story. But that is not all the time, even in the best place. Even Hawaii, during the winter, they still have a week of no waves. And in the summer, they don't get waves for 4 months. So they're still always waiting around for waves like everybody else. And when there's even like a touch of surf and you can go to the beach and with your surfboard, you can be 55 years old and just immediately feel like a kid again. And that gives people like a complete joy of life that I've experienced that everywhere. That is like completely ubiquitous across every surf town across the world. The people who went there to just kind of put everything else aside and just surf, like all those people are the happiest people. They are not upset about the choice they made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a bunch of questions kind of piling up.
Hit me.
All right. Well, we want a vocabulary lesson. What's going on with a surfboard when it tombstones in a wave?
That's when you fall down into the water and you're being held underwater, but your board floats and it floats on the top of the water like a tombstone.
Floats vertically.
Vertically because you're down on the bottom.
So what does steez mean? STEEZ.
That is like style.
Okay. See, this is good. Yeah, Karen is asking like, whoa, what are some good slang terms that if we all want to be hip and surf, what should we say?
That's pretty like 2005.
Oh, perfect. Just dating myself just a little bit.
okay, boomers.
Well, that was my era.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, D's was big time.
So what's your favorite surfing word or slang word from Karen?
Great question. Shout out Blue Crush, the movie.
Yeah.
Getting worked.
Okay.
When you fall in a wave, you're getting turned around and everything.
Okay. That's a good one. I might kind of work that into some of my library slang.
Nice.
See if I can pull that one out. And then Scott asked a question. We talked about this when we watched the movie. It's like, what's the etiquette for who gets the wave? I mean, because especially when there were those shots with all those surfers and all of those jet skis. I mean, how do you determine who gets to go and, what's the process there?
There's like two variables. One is where, so like geographically where you are. If you live there, you kind of have a hierarchy, and that gets like street by street in some place like San Diego. it's like, well, this is I surf like here and you surf 200 yards over there, different spot, different name, different crowd. And so like the guys and girls that have been surfing there since the 60s, like they can surf, they have the etiquette, they have the power.
Oh, I see.
You're
They call the
traveling.
shots.
Yeah, if you travel somewhere, you should give the priority to the person who lives there. But then generally speaking, in a perfect world, it should be like a rotation of there's 5 people out. The first person goes, then they go to the back of the line. The next person goes, and it should be like that. And that never happens. When it does happen, that is so everybody kind of like after 30 minutes looks around and then you're all friends. It's like, oh my God, we're all just courteous people to each other. We all just enjoy that for an hour and then somebody else comes out and they ruin it. They like,
well, because one of those guys was commenting about how there were disrespectful people out there and he wasn't getting the waves that he wanted to. And he finally, I think it was the guy that ended up surfing the 100-foot wave, but he had a tough time getting to that because of the, people weren't being courteous, I guess.
I mean, it's the same as you notice in your everyday life. Like when you go to driving, like when you're driving and somebody does something stupid and you're just like, or not even stupid, but just discourteous.
Yeah.
And you kind of shake your head. It's like, the road is always there. You've probably made that drive 100 times. Surfing, there's like this hot commodity going around and everybody just often is extremely selfish and it just brings out the worst in people sometimes. And you see that that's also everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a microcosm. There are every end of every spectrum in a group of surfers in the water.
Yeah. I guess it's just they're
strange.
human beings.
Yeah.
Jill wants to know if you had any close shark encounters.
Say no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
lie.
nothing crazy, but I have seen them and that they're definitely out there.
Yeah.
But
especially where you are, it seems like that's a issue.
yeah, Cape Cod, which is really close to me, is kind of like the new global hotspot, which is totally wild.
Yeah. Isn't that where Jaws was filmed?
Close by,
Yeah.
Rhode Island.
Yeah.
But the Cape, that's just where they're born. I mean, I don't know. They're always out there in some degree, and it's like getting struck by lightning. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I also don't surf the Cape in the summertime, and I don't go fishing in a thunderstorm.
That's always a good move. So is there a place out there that you want to surf that you've never visited before?
Yes. There's a lot. That's the thing. Everywhere has good surf, just sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, you can go anywhere. And I'm actually going to Ireland in the fall with my girlfriend, and they get great surf, and nobody goes to Ireland to surf, really.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's good, but Indonesia also.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, well, you're used to
South Africa.
cold surfing, so Ireland will be fine.
Yeah, fine. Their water is cooler than ours.
Sharon wants to know, what's the difference in function between short and long boards?
Longboards are easier to catch waves and easier to ride and more fun in a laid back way. Short boards are harder to ride, much faster, and a different kind of fun in like a performance or like aggressive technical way.
Okay.
Both are different and very fun and can be ridden at the same time.
So do like the guys in the movie that are they on short or long boards or?
Yeah, mostly it's a different beast.
Yeah.
In small waves, they would be on short boards.
Okay.
100% of the time.
I mean, is it kind of like a snowboard versus skis? Because isn't a snowboard kind of short?
It's like downhill skiing versus cross country skiing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like I want to go out there on a calm day and scoot around on cross country skis and maybe go down a little hill.
Mhm.
That's like longboarding, as
Okay.
opposed to I want to go as fast as I can and do the biggest turn and go through the trees. That's shortboarding.
We should take a vote. Who would be a longboarder and who would be a shortboarder in this group? I think Sharon would ride a shortboard.
I'm a longboarder.
Yeah, I think a longboard sounds really kind of lovely.
Oh yeah, so fun.
That sounds great.
Easy. Again, I don't have all the time in the world and we don't get waves all that often. So I want
Yeah.
easy, accessible, fun option every time.
Yeah.
I'm a
Scott's
no-boarder too, Scott.
That's a no border. He just
I like to sit and watch.
That's right. He's a surfer without a board, I guess. Is that right? Is that what you're trying to say? Shelley talks about some of the waves just seem to have near traffic jams. Is that because of the competitions or discourtesy? People are kind of running in. I remember the guy that ran into the back of the other guy's board.
Yeah, that was unique. Like the biggest thing is if there's 50 people out and there's only 5 waves every couple of minutes,
Mhm.
that's just not enough to go around.
Yeah.
And so people start to get competitive and then it's like excuse my language, a pissing match over who can be more competitive. And they, the biggest jerk usually wins.
Yeah.
and then somebody that makes somebody else upset. So then they're like, screw you. I'll be more competitive, and it just turns into a traffic jam.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
lifeguard person said that there were people out there who should not have been out there. They were amateurs and they didn't know how
Yeah.
or the rules. Are there lifeguards or people who control any of that?
No, it's a self-regulating
Yeah.
group always, and that for better and for worse, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it seems to also, the same goes for the drivers of the jet skis too. I mean, it seems like if you're clueless and don't know what you're doing there, that could be equally as
Yeah,
disruptive.
that is not my dream job.
Yeah, that'd be hard.
Peter,
Hard.
would you say that surfing honors its elders and the people that have come before them, in the sense that it's sort of a revered former generation that broke windows, so to speak? That's that I get from reading that book, is that there were real sort of honors. Like, it just seems like we don't honor our elders a lot in a lot of situations. And it was something that came through when I read that book, was that just that sort of former glory and the respect and sort of the name, and like you're starting out and the big names and the kids' fathers who were also, maybe not recognized by ESPN because it was the 50s, but they sort of paved the way, and it's still sort of talked about like legends.
Mm-hmm.
That, because I feel like that's something that we're lacking in our culture in a lot of ways, that there's not a lot of recognition to people who paved the way for things consistently.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
picked that up when I was reading that book.
There's a huge level. You're absolutely right. The respect for the people who have been doing it longer than you in the same place is huge. And that
Mhm.
it kind of goes without saying, but not in a lot of other sports. Like if you're just a random kid that comes out and doesn't, and like cuts off an older guy who has been surfing there for a long time, like
Yes.
you will get chastised
Hmm.
100%. And that might not be the right thing, but you will get told who that guy is, and you shouldn't. And not in like that guy's tough and bigger than you. It's like, don't you know who that guy? Like that guy was surfing here in April when the water was 50 degrees before wetsuits. Like he was doing that. And then like to go even beyond that, all of surfing has an insane amount of respect for Hawaiian culture, and Polynesian culture in general, because like, I mean, surfing is concretely attributed to Hawaii and started there. And I think John Muir maybe like went to Hawaii in the late 1800s and writes about the king surfing a wave. Like, I mean, that they have been surfing for hundreds of years. And
Duke kind of.
yeah, and then the Duke brought it to California in like the 20s, I think. And so surfing as we know it today is so young, but riding a wave is really old. That's like an ancient tradition, and that is really revered. I mean, pretty much everybody in surfing knows that story, and I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, we're bumping up on 8 o'clock. What we usually do at the end of these conversations is give our film a rating between 1 and 5. So 1 being really not great and 5 being really fantastic. So put your votes in with your fingers. How do you rank this one? I'll give it all right. We got 4s, we got 3s, mostly 3s. All right.
I give it a 3 because I wanted more. I wanted more about why you do it. And it was so technical.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Amy summed it up well. She said, you're so articulate talking about surfing. So you really, really kind of gave us a wonderful sense of what it's like to be out there, and, you know, kind of hit the sweet spot of when you're surfing. So thank you very much. It was
Thank you, Peter.
delightful to have you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
So our next,
Kathleen, or Peter, did you say anything about how many people actually make a living doing that?
Oh God.
5.
Is it pretty common or no?
I think a lot of people make money for a period of time, but then very few sustain that for very long.
Yeah.
That was the same with skateboarding too. Like very few people made it into the industry after their two years of being the star.
TV has such an impact. I mean, the sponsors in television, that pays for so much of it. And unless the TV covers it, you don't get stars who can then become the announcers and the coaches and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're in the infancy of that. That like competitive, but again, the competitive side of surfing is very far removed from the everyday person. And it all comes back to like clothing, surf culture, lifestyle. Selling flip-flops is the name of the game.
I remember when snowboarding first became popular, it was going and having to buy an entire outfit because it was different. Aloha.
I'm seeing signals coming between Heather.
That's aloha. That means it's life. Good life.
All right.
Are you in Portsmouth right now, Peter?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, we'll all come up and visit you, and you can teach us how to surf. How's that?
Yeah, and you need to go find a new dentist, Dr. Katzman.
That's right. Yep.
He's really cool and pretty crazy and does a lot of dope, Peter.
Nice. Good.
Oh my God. And that was recorded. So there you have it.
Yeah, on that note.
I didn't
on that
respond.
note. Yeah, you were very smart. thank you all for coming, and
Yeah, thank
Amy
you,
and Jim,
Peter.
enjoy Mavericks out there where you are in California, and report back on the surfing. And we'll see you again. Our next one of these is on September 20th, and I'll send you the info, but it's going to be fantastic as well.
Be
Just
safe,
as cool
Peter.
as
Be
today.
safe.
Love you,
Thank you so
Peter.
Yeah.
much.
Thank
Bye,
you so
guys.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Bye.
good.